Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Kavita Chanayan, and I have um, with me Dr. Sumit Kesarkar, and we have been discussing the COVID-19 pandemic from the standpoint of Ayurveda and other Vedic sciences. And in the previous video, we spoke about immunity and what this concept means in modern medicine versus in Ayurveda. And in this video, we're going to discuss specifically things you can do to build your immunity over the long term. Welcome, Dr. Sumit, again.
Oh, thank you, Kavita ji, for having me on your show.
So tell us about the Ayurvedic lifestyle and how this helps with conferring immunity over the long term.
So, as I had spoken earlier, Ayurvedic lifestyle is connecting yourself with nature, with forces of nature. And the concept of immunity, what we talk, there is no specific measure to know about immunity. Sometimes the words pratikar shakti means one to defeat something, to defeat something is understood as immunity. When rog pratikar shakti means like when you have a disease, how can you resist it? How can you be away from it? How can you prevent happening to it in terms of an epidemic? And in that sense, the structured way of how humans live has been given in Ayurveda in terms of Dinacharya. Of course, it goes to sanskaras from the right we are born to certain immunological procedures, like in Hindu culture, we pierce the ear at a particular time. So this is the time when certain nerve points are exposed, and when they are pierced, certain immune responses start happening into the body. Because we have to understand at that time there were no, like a lot of sterile environments. People used to get children in their houses. They used to fumigate. Infection rate might be high. Sanitation procedures might be there, might not be there. They might be evolving over a period of time. So people had to take care. And the word Janopadavans, as I said, is already mentioned in Ayurveda. So people knew about communicable form of diseases. There were diseases which happened due to bhutas. Bhutas means like krimis or pathogens, which are unknown, but yet they created a kind of a mass or an individual impact in the society. Travel was not that much, only few people traveled for trade. People generally had a closed section where somebody used to grow crops, somebody used to provide the milk, somebody used to take care. So it was like a barter system, like a community farm. And so communicable diseases were mostly restricted to huge cities or pilgrim centers like Kashi, or if you trace the history, well, I'm not saying that these cities were exposed to epidemics, but if you see the history, wherever epidemics have been happening in India, these were big cities where cultural points met. Earlier times, during the colonial times. So now the concept of an immunity or pratikar rog pratikar shakti was already there, where even if it was known that you're going to get exposed to a lot of environmental and problems. So the term, sorry. Okay. So the term rog pratikar shakti was already understood. It was a very common term to people, where they understood that they have to do something so that even if they got some diseases, either acute or chronic, or something which prevented them from doing a day-to-day activities, they need to work towards it, either by taking certain herbs, doing certain procedures. And of course, if disease struck, the healer was already there. So for this Rog Pratikar Shakti, the sanskaras, right from the child when he was born to how we graduated over a period of 6-7 months till the Upanan, when he was sent to a school to learn. These were things which were instilled right on the mother's side to the child's side, so that he develops good immunity. Because that time also it was said that in first month, second month, certain bhutas come and take away the child. So when we say bhut come, a lot of people think the possessions are there, some evil spirits come. But it was not like that. It was that people were very aware that little children are more susceptible to communicable diseases, respiratory diseases. And therefore, Bal Pratikar, Rog Pratikar was a very important point discussed. If we read the text Kumar Bhritti, it is given. So coming back to the point, on those lines, because Ayurveda is a very multifaceted, multidimensional science, a science which not only traces itself to the past but also to the future. This alignment, if you can just jot down, I'm not trying to generalize anything, but because it is just information giving program, and anybody who wants to go delve much further, they should consult an Ayurveda physician. I'm just making certain responsible statements, but people can follow it. But if they find any benefit, they should, consider consulting an expert on their own lines, because Ayurveda is a multidimensional science, and what I say for someone might not be true for them if they're following someone else.
Right.
Okay, so coming back to the point, so what we can generalize is that people followed the sun and the moon. They rose up with the sun, they went down with the moon. There were certain procedures like sandhya. If you see the Vedic rites, the evening agni, there were three types of agni: the grahapatya agni, where used to cook food; then the avidnya agni, where used to give offer something to the deities. So people made this senses that we require fire to cook food. We Certain things have to be done at certain times. Even we come across things that when there was grahan, like eclipses, people never used to eat food, because they knew that because there is eclipse, there is increase of microorganisms into or pathogens in the air. And we are talking about time where we did not have sanitizations or air humidifiers, disinfectants. Like everything was freely flowing.
Yeah.
So in that sense, people in those geographical conditions gave a general idea of Dinacharya. Get up with the sun. Generally at 3:45, people used to get up, but it is not that you put an alarm at 3:45. People just used to get up because they got motions at 3:45. That was said that okay, this is the time the Vayu becomes active. You get up, waste materials are evacuated, then you take a bath, you do your puja, and by 6 p.m. When the sun rises, you start your day. So some people used to do abhyanga, right? Depending upon the geographical conditions. If you are staying in a very cold condition, they used to do it every day. If you're staying in a warm condition, it could be just dry powders or something. Take a bath, then cook the food for morning 2 times a day, 3 times a day, depending upon whatever your occupation was, and eventually it progress. So now if we can build on those terms in day-to-day modern life, where we lead most of time sedentary lifestyles. We are staying in AC environments, we are staying in heater rooms, we have toilets inside our houses, we are not exposing ourselves to the sun and the moon. So generally I feel that get up by just before sunrise, around 4 5 p.m. Okay. uh, for your immunity, I think that is the time your agni is a little bit high. Or if you're not getting any bowel movements, take some water, soak overnight a little bit of cumin seeds or fenugreek seeds, depending, and just drink the water. See that you mix the saliva and drink it like this, and drink it. Then wait, clear your bowels, take a bath around after 2 hours, like 7 or 8 or 9. Just have, if you're not like a heavy worker in the field, I generally prefer have 2 times a day meals, like eat at one particular time between 9 to 9:40 or 8 to 8:40, but keep those time constant so that your body knows when to secrete the enzymes. So it is all about demand and supply mechanism. The more your body is trained to secrete certain enzymes at particular time, you get most effective. But if you are telling the body to secrete enzymes at all the time, eating at particular time, the body goes into a state of inflammation. And that an inflamed body, as I've told in my previous lecture, is always prone to more getting up more diseases. Yeah. So if you eat at a particular time, that's fine. So you eat 2 meals a day. So once you eat in the morning, then straight away eat in the evening before 6 when the sun sets. After the sun sets, because your body goes into a digestive mode, a cleansing mode. So support the body. Like if you eat at 6, from 8 to 12 or 9 to 12, your body, your liver and certain organs starts cleaning themselves. Between 12 to 3, your lungs start cleaning itself. So I always say that if you get up at 2 in the night, you'll just have a little bit of you'll make a cough. Yeah. And then between 3 to 4, 4 to 3 to 4:30, which is the Brahma Muhurt, all these waste materials come into your system and you get up. Yeah. Once this basic thing has been attained into your body, you're eating on time, sleeping on time around 10:30, you're waking up with bowel movements, you're just going to the bowel to clear your bowels in once a day. That thing happens naturally, and it happens between 2 to 3 seconds. You don't have to strain. Then your system is creating optimum food, optimum waste. This happens that over a period of time, it creates optimum response. It creates qualitative blood. A lot of time I talk about qualitative blood, people think, is it hemoglobin? So there are people whose hemoglobin is 10 12, at a very high range, but they have all kind of diseases. I have seen a lot of people who work in the fields, their hemoglobin is pretty less. The women, they do not suffer from any diseases. So it is not about the quantity. Here I'm making a point on supplements. It is what is that cocktail mixture of right hormonal responses, pathological, which will support your system in the worst times. But you have to train yourself for it. Expose yourself. Do not run, because it puts your body. I see a lot of people running, drinking, running. It is not a good thing, because you are putting a lot of pressure on your thyroid glands, you walk, because we are meant to walk. If you've seen the history of humans, we have walked over, huge distances. Soldiers, people, mass migration, no one has run, everybody has walked.
Mhm.
Even in Ayurveda, if you see the most metabolic disease like diabetes and all, they say that if you walk 1 yojan or so many miles over a period of time, it gets destroyed.
Mhm.
So what it tells you that when you walk, your every cell in a very curtailed manner is absorbing food, creating nutrition, and throwing away the waste.
Mhm.
If you do it haphazard up and down, then probably you're going to cause a lot of problems, a lot of pressure. So walk at a particular time. Take a eventually, do not take very hot or very cold baths. Have room temperature. So even if you are in a very hot temperature, have cold baths, like which are sustainable to the body. If you're in even cold temperatures, do not take hot bath, or you can start with hot bath, finish with cold, because once you put cold on your system, your heart, your blood warms up. A lot of people think if I take cold bath, I'll get issues. It is not like that. If you go take a cold bath on your chest, what happens, it creates a vagal response. Your heartbeat first slows down, then eventually your heartbeat increases. You're a doctor, so and then the blood warms up. Once the blood warms up, what happens, like you get this immune feeling inside your system, because once the blood reaches, so it kind of a vasodilation offers. Blood is going into the deepest of canals, and wherever the blood reaches, there is life. Because we give this example of necrosis or gangrene.
Yeah.
A lot of time the blood doesn't reach that portion, you have to cut it off, it becomes cold. So these things, if we just understand from nature, you warm up your body in a natural way. Do not unnecessarily stretch. If you get good sleep, you're going to just yawn. That 5 seconds of yawn is a mental brain response, so it just flexes all your muscles. But if you get up on a particular time, put your body into stress and go and do stretching, it is going to cause you problems. So these are small things. If we apply logically and align with nature, it would be fine. For women, I would say that during menses, just sit tight in a dark room. Do not do heavy work. Now, a lot of people feel it is like a misogynist thing. We are suppressing women, but there is a logic behind it, because during menses, maximum amount of blood pressure is at the uterus. So if you eat food, the blood is going to get cut from there and go to your stomach. It's a very common response by the brain. Blood is not going to Body is not going to create blood on the rice. It is going to cut somewhere and put it back somewhere. So there was a reason that if you give that 3 days to yourself, sit in a dark room, have do no much activity, do not take much bath on the body, just wipe your body. 3 days, let the blood flow away. You get natural immunity, and that is the reason why if you see Ayurveda text, very few pages are given to women health. And most of them are menstrual disorders. It is not because it is a misogynist science. It is because it understands that if a woman can have a healthy menstrual cycle, healthy doesn't mean regular, healthy menstrual cycle, then she won't suffer from any disease or aging, and she'll have a lot of immunity.
Mm.
So, and there is history and data to prove it. It's not like if you go and see throughout the history of Indian who have followed it, they have fallen less sick. Women have got mostly degenerative disorders like joint disorders or bone disorders working in the field. But nowadays, young women, young girls are suffering from PCOD, thyroid disorders. So all these things, if you do properly, keep a proper enzymatic and hormonal flow of the system as per the Ayurveda guidelines. I'm just touching a little bit over the timings you have to follow with the sun and the moon. And if that do that, it will go a long way in increasing your Rop Pratikar Shakti. And the third part I like to stress upon is the creation of food, how you prepare food, utensils. A lot of time we struggle to talk about organic food, inorganic food, but the food has to be prepared in the right way. No point in getting the best organic food and cooking it in aluminium.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
earlier you used to have brass vessels. Inside there was tin coating that was an inert. So you used to have one vessel for milk, one for meat, one for dal, one rice is to be cooked in. So even if you have two set of vessels, you use it, you maintain it properly. Not only you, even your children and young people are going to get benefited, because this metals, even stainless steel or aluminium, because stainless steel is expensive, so people make alloys with cheap alloys like nickel cadmium alloy. The ratio is not proper. They slowly leach into your children's system, and
Yeah.
this heavy metal toxicity, as cause hormonal changes, causes immunological changes. They slowly build up over the kidneys. So it is not that you have to go out and look for supplements. These
Correct.
things were a part of all cultures. You just have to bring it back, support people who are doing the right kind of work, just combine it with proper dietetics and timings. Sacrifice few of the goodies, like don't work a little bit late night, get up early and work. You might lose some money, but if you can give that to health, build your system over time, then this kind of communicable diseases will not hamper your life and will give you the head start to start in a way, when all the world is still recovering. So
Yeah.
this is a cumulative process which you have to build over time, and small guidelines I have given. But if you talk with your Ayurveda doctor, physician, and do your studies, maybe you can individualize it for your own family.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to summarize this for people who are listening, so we can have some systematic way of thinking about this. So the first thing that Dr. Sumit spoke about was to maintain timings for waking up and going to sleep and eating. So also, I want to mention that all of this is in a blog post that I will share along with this video, so you can access these specific guidelines. And I also want to ask you some questions as we go along about some of these dietary guidelines. But the most important things right now are to maintain a routine, a regular schedule. So go to bed by 10. Don't stay up beyond 10 p.m. And don't stay in bed after 6 a.m. Is that pretty fair?
It means if you get up at 5, just get up and don't go back to bed
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know,
And don't sleep throughout the day.
yes.
Yeah.
So sleep at 10, wake up before 6, and don't sleep during the day. Do not take naps. And then, maintain the same timings for your meals. So don't eat one day at 9 o'clock, the other day at 4 o'clock. So keeping the excuse me, the meal times really constant is very important. Um, and then some of these guidelines that Dr. Sumit spoke about, which is, you know, if you're a woman and you heard this guideline to stay in a dark room, it doesn't mean you just sit in your dark room for 3 days. It means to really build in quiet time for yourself. Don't exercise during your periods. Um, don't take warm showers and long showers and things like that, because there's a good physiological explanation for this, where there's peripheral vasodilation and things. There is um, a, a distraction, so to speak, from the process, the main process that's going on, which is the shedding of the lining of the uterus. And when that doesn't happen as it should, that's when women's bodies accumulate disease over time of various types. So the whole purpose is to allow this process to go on unhindered and to support it by not doing things that will hinder that, as in exercising and things like that. And again, this has nothing to do with misogyny. It has more to do with physiology. And in terms of diet guidelines, this is the diet I prescribe for all of my patients, actually. And I call it the lead diet. Lead, L-E-A-D, because it leads to good health and wellness over the long term. So things to remember, the L stands for liberalize. So what can you eat, right? So you can eat whole grains that are well cooked, the dals and pulses and lentils, and certain types of vegetables, such as the various types of gourds and zucchini and things like that. And there are certain vegetables and certain foods that we say to avoid. And I want to talk with you, Dr. Sumit, about this, because a lot of times what happens is people confuse this Ayurvedic diet guideline with that of nutrition. And so if I say, for instance, please avoid cruciferous vegetables, there is a different explanation for this from the standpoint of Ayurveda, but then people get very upset because they feel like they're missing out on vitamins and minerals and what is good for me. So can you address that?
Yeah. I just made a point about qualitative blood. So qualitative blood is not a pathological brilliant report. Okay. Now, as far as people say, okay, fine, if you're saying, for example, I'll say some people that, okay, just be on milk for a few days, for example. Then people say, where I'm going to get my protein. I know
Yes.
that is what you're where you're coming from, or where
Yeah.
I'm going to get my so and so vitamins day.
Yes.
So here there are two aspects to this. First aspect is that you have to follow someone who is giving you a guideline towards your health, and you have to align with that idea. So no diet is wrong. So if you're following a nutritionalist, go and follow a nutritionalist. If in that program somebody is telling you to add something, do add it. But then be okay with whatever comes with it. Because no doctor, no nutritionalist or nothing, even you are a doctor, when you treat someone even on a protocol, there is a vision of what kind of a results you're trying to see in this patient, right?
Hmm.
Even if the dosages might be the same, even if you're prescribing the same medicines to 10 people, individually you understand you're going to adjust the dose depending upon where he's coming from, and if you are a good doctor, because you want that individual effect.
Yes.
If you're just like a very I won't use the word plastic, but very methodical, who will say, okay, this is how I'm going to treat, then maybe you're not going to get that kind of a result. So Ayurveda diet is not individual. There is nothing, I made a video on it, so there is nothing called as Ayurvedic cooking or Ayurvedic diet. This diet is based on a set of principles which we have to imbibe into our system and then build on it.
Yeah.
So when I say that I have to cook a food, particular food, it has to balance in all the six tastes, either in a meal or over the entire day.
Hmm.
So if I eat, like, most of the time my food will be sweet in taste, sour in taste, salty in taste, maybe spicy in taste. So these are the four tastes which we basically use. We are not going to have anything which is bitter. We
Mm.
are not going to have anything which is astringent.
Yeah.
So if you use a little earlier time, people used to eat something which was pan, it was a little bit astringent in taste. Now we put sweet in it.
Yeah.
So that used to give that astringent taste. There was people used to get up and sometimes she used to chew tulsi leaves or neem leaves or whatever, to get the bitter taste. Now can sometimes we have this espresso coffee for it. So Ayurveda doesn't distinguish between good and bad. Those are a school of thought. As I said, in certain school of thought, onion and garlic is not allowed, like the Vaishnav school of thought. Vaishnav people, they don't use onion, garlic, or certain vegetables they don't use because they feel it is tamasic or rajasic.
Yeah.
That is a school of thought. That is not Ayurveda. That
Yeah.
is a school of thought in which to attain a particular state of consciousness, these things are not allowed.
Yeah.
We confuse it with Ayurveda.
Yeah.
So Ayurveda is a algorithmic science of how to cook. So it will tell you, for example, in Panini's Sanskrit grammar, where we find this methodology of cooking. So we come across something called as Mishrikaran. So it gives you, when to mix what.
Mm.
So you have to say salt. So salt must always be put before cooking. You should never put it while cooking and after cooking. So see, I don't want to go much into the technicalities because it is something one has to work with their practitioner. But just I'm making this point to answer your question, that when you are doing an Ayurveda diet or this kind of a principles, you have to just focus on what quality you're creating for the long run.
Yes.
Quantity is never going to guarantee you immunity. If you say I want vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin C, so these are minerals what you know.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of minerals and metals which you don't even know in what trace amount they are in your body. Like you have gold in your body.
Right.
Even you might have platinum in your body. You might have a little bit of other things into your body in very trace elements. Even arsenic is there.
Yeah.
So now if arsenic values goes little bit less, your body will start giving symptoms over a period of time.
Mm.
And therefore nowadays in certain brain disorders like Alzheimer's or certain things, they are using arsenic as a treatment modality. They are using gold pellets for rheumatoid arthritis. They're injecting gold. And earlier time, this quotient was also known in Ayurveda in terms of heavy metal formulations, like we used to use bhasmas, like nanomedicines.
Mm.
Nowadays, why it is becoming an issue? Because people are just eating it as a prescription because it is Ayurveda and not understanding the dynamics of it.
Mm.
So Ayurvedic diet is never one-to-one. It is a conglomeration of what you are doing at a correct time.
Correct.
So I'll give you a very simple example. In traditional medicine, they say that if you have pomegranate juice, express juice, the eyesight will improve. But if you eat the seeds, your eyesight will decrease.
Mm.
So one thing can give you two different aspects depending on when and how you are consuming it.
Correct.
Banana, they say in certain traditional medicine, if you eat on empty stomach, your blood quality goes down. If the same banana you eat after your food, it increases your blood quality. Now, this might come across as like vague expressions, but the point I'm trying to make here is that Ayurveda is not just about the entity. It is about the whole orchestra, from where you get up and sleep and when and what you're putting inside.
Mm.
So the wrong food at the right time with the right agni will still create blood.
Mm.
The right food at the right time but with the wrong agni will create poison.
Right.
And this is the concept we have to build in the long run, that we don't have to limit ourselves to vitamins, proteins, minerals, because there is no one cocktail formula.
Right.
You cannot say I'm eating over 1,000 units of vitamin D, 2,000 units of vitamin B12. I'm get It's never an issue. Even if you take something which is loaded with vitamin, but it is not digesting at a level, it is going to cause you vitamin toxicity.
Correct.
So it has to be absorbed. It has to be sustained by the body. And it's a very difficult and intricate science which you can only evaluate when you surrender to the person who is guiding you on Ayurveda principles. So I would definitely make a point here that neither of their vision is wrong. If they think that they need to combine nutritional, what is it, the nutritional concept with diet, then they should only follow a nutritionalist and maybe use Ayurveda cooking methods from the nutritionalist point of view.
Right.
But if they want to follow an Ayurveda diet, they have to leave all these things like vitamin C, vitamin D, and all, and they have to follow the diet.
Yeah.
In that process, if their levels go up, so be it. They cannot eat amla because it contains vitamin C. They
Right.
cannot eat lemon because it contains vitamin C. This is going to cause more problems, not for them, but for the upcoming generation who is going to get confused, feeling eventually that I'm having all my nutrition, but the moment they get exposed to any kind of a virus, they're going to fall sick, and their world is going to come crashing down. So follow one, introspect, stick to a plan, build your immunity over time. That is, say, immunity is always built over time. It is not something which can be quantified.
Right.
It is not like a blood sugar you can check out for 15 days and say it has come to normal.
Correct.
And there, how your rog pratikar shakti develops, and that is how satmya develops, and you can coexist anywhere in the world. That does not mean that you're not going to fall sick, but your chances of recovery are very high.
So thank you for clarifying that. And so in other diet guidelines, one of the important things is to eliminate sugar, refined sugar entirely, because sugar, as many of you know, is toxic and highly inflammatory. So eliminating it completely is a good thing to do over the long term. And certain types of processed foods, especially processed meats, I would say to avoid as well. And and there are certain things to decrease drastically, such as salt. And you just heard that salt must be added before you start cooking. And once you are done cooking, if you feel like your food still needs salt, you can try some lemon juice instead of salt, but don't add salt. So simple things like this, and then in the utensils that you use for cooking and eating, if you can make some changes in those, and you just follow these things regimented over weeks and months, that's when you'll start noticing changes in your body. And that is the principle of building immunity. It's not like, okay, I'll do whatever I want and then I'll just take this herbal supplement and suddenly it's going to give me immunity. It doesn't work like that. Immunity is something that we have to strive for and work over weeks and months through a daily discipline. And so speaking of, are there certain supplements or certain things that people can take to boost their immunity on top of the lifestyle?
See, I won't say it will boost the immunity, but definitely if you come across references in Ayurveda, then you will come to know that, earlier times, whenever there were change of seasons, certain things were implemented. People used to eat certain things which were very seasonal, which gave them, uh, a kind of a direction of how exactly the season is going to change, what exact kind of things they have to imbibe.
Yeah.
And from there we can take some cue that, first of all, if you're following a discipline in terms of diet and everything, then as per the season changes, certain times in India, when the season spring comes, the cough increases. People know. So in India they do emesis called vaman.
Yeah.
In Ayurveda, where they remove the cough. So we know that there are certain seasonal changes which are happening across the masses, irrespective of your immunity, and this give rise to a particular kind of communicable diseases. So at that time, if you feel that there is a need, There are certain things which you can start, like a lot of people start a few basil leaves, tulsi leaves, and peppercorn. They just chew it during a change of season so that they don't get affected by flu or viruses. There is fumigation people do in their houses with neem leaves and a little bit of cow products, so that that kills the pathogens. uh,
So, what about people who cannot access, basil?
See, there are, you can have peppercorns. There are, see, the spices in your house. I generally say when I travel around the world or talk to people from outside India, I tell them that don't waste your money and time importing herbs from India. I'm not saying it is bad, but they turn to be expensive over a period of time. You're not getting it fresh. Most of the times I tell the same thing with fruits. I don't allow people to have fruits in their diet. The reason is not because fruits are bad, because you have to consume them within a period of time. The moment either you have to pluck it, or you have to just consume it as soon as they are fallen down within 7 hours. Eventually, what happens? Fruits over a period of time become a bigger part of trade. The fresh fruits. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about the dried fruits. And that what happens? They slowly get converted into very complex, rich sugars, which the body is unable to digest over a period of time. I can understand occasional,
Yeah.
but people take fruits for breakfast, mix fruit for breakfast, and that causes a problem. So I'm not a fan of things which have to be imported from somewhere, powdered and taken inside, which you cannot sustain. But spices we always get fresh,
Yeah.
like cloves, pepper, um, cumin. So if you have to protect yourself from fevers, you have to protect yourselves from phlegm, just have a little bit of pepper with honey every day for 7 8 days. If you
How
feel,
much pepper?
maybe two peppercorns,
Okay.
depending upon, have raw honey, little bit, just lick it, see how it goes. Okay. If you are having a little bit of chest infections, lung infections, just mix a little bit of, take cloves, just roast them, powder them.
Cloves.
Cloves,
Okay.
yeah, cloves. And you can add a little bit of what do you say, cardamom powder to it, clove and cardamom, and just lick it with honey 2 times a day. So these things will help you with your lungs, sometimes with your digestion. Okay. It will give you good bowel movements. And this is something which I can tell as a general guideline. I won't go much into specifics, because even if people would follow certain things from your blog and do it for a period of 2 3 months and they do find benefits, I would request them to go and consult someone to to individualize it for them and their family over a period of time, because we all come from different ethnic groups. Our traditional values are different. Our gene code has been trained over a period of time to accept certain things and reject certain things. uh, Whatever kind of food we prepare in our houses, and it is not a natural thing, because somebody who can digest non-vegetarian food well can be born in a vegetarian family. A person who is born in a vegetarian family and a non-vegetarian family can digest only vegetarian food well. These are pathological things which we have seen across people, but because we are born in a particular family, we generally pick up the habits of that family in
Right.
terms. So these things, what I'm telling, is irrespective of where you are born, India, US, or anywhere. This, anybody can follow the sun, anybody can follow the moon. Give yourself a structured lifestyle. This has been done over a period of time when societies were evolving. And use spices in nature which you're going to use in your food. People can say that, no, I use a lot of pepper in my food. That is not, its body doesn't respond in a chemical pathway to that, because you're combining something. But when you use it at a particular time in the morning, you just chew it, it just in that particular zone, it stimulates your neuronal pathways, it stimulates your immune system in a different way. So I cannot say I'm using a lot of turmeric in my food and therefore I'm healthy. No, it doesn't make a difference, because that turmeric, along with other food getting mixed, is going into the system and going to create a separate response. That same turmeric, if you drink with milk when you have swelling over your body, is going to act as medicine.
Yeah.
If you eat a little bit of sesame seeds with jaggery every day, it is going to reduce your urine. The same sesame seeds with jaggery, if you use during festivals like Pongal or Sankrant, we eat the laddu sweet made from it. It doesn't make much of a difference, because you're eating it with other foods. So how you eat, when you eat, is important. So as soon as you get up in the morning, you can have that to stimulate your system. Do not eat 2 hours after that. Before going to sleep, you can have a little bit. Have a good control over the diet. Do it over a period of time. You can keep changing the herbs depending upon the geographical conditions you stay in.
Yeah.
So if you're staying in a very cold conditions, maybe pepper might work much better. If you're staying in a little bit tropical conditions, maybe cloves might work a little bit much better. So that way you can use these spices for your good health, but eventually you have to consult someone and do it, because some people might have systemic disorders, some people might have some medications going on. So those things also needed to be taken into account, and hence I'll always recommend spices, because anyways we use it in food, it is not going to cause any complications. But herbs I might not suggest, because the herbal interactions are pretty much relevant. People don't believe it, but people herbs do interact with medications. Herbs cause potentiation of certain medications, it is true, because we do not know what all kind of chemicals we are putting into our system. Again, we are also putting certain supplements which are potentiating certain herbs. So we are drinking fruit juices, concentrated fruit juices for breakfasts, which are potentiating certain herbs, and these interactions are real.
Yeah.
So that is what I won't be responsible and advise on your blog. But spices, fine, people can use it. They will give you the benefit. They have to be taken methodically over a period of time, and they will be useful.
Yeah. So the diet, that we just spoke about, is that would you say that's applicable to everyone across the board, even people who may be immunocompromised and have systemic illnesses like lupus or whatever? Is it okay for them to follow that diet too?
See, if it gives any confidence, I've treated people mostly over 40, 50 countries, and I give the same diet to everyone.
Yeah.
The timings and everything. Most of the times I even put my clients who on just on milk for 60 days. Sometimes the availability of what kind of a milk is a question, then you can improvise. Again, I'm saying that we cannot standardize this. When I say cow's milk or A2 milk, it is of a particular constitution. All milks across the world are A2 milk, only the cow's milk is mutated. So
Right.
pasteurized cow's milk is very different from a non-pasteurized, non-homogeneous cow's milk.
Right.
So that attention to detail has to be mentioned. Only then you can give one diet for everyone.
Correct.
But if they don't want to follow a one particular entity which requires supervision, they can at least follow the timings.
Yeah.
Go with, even if in your part of the world the sunset happens at 8, still follow the timings. Get up at 5, finish your food before 6, have only 2 meals a day, and after 6 do not eat.
Yeah.
Go to bed by 10, 10:30, max 11, if you have to work. Even if you get up early by 4 and do your work, it is fine, but do not sleep late.
Yeah.
And if anybody across the world follows this, I also have few blogs, or I help out people who have systemic disorders. They ask me for advice. I just tell them to follow this diet and maybe give them a spice here and there.
Yeah.
And I tell them just do it for 1 or 2 months. 95% of time it helps them, and after that I tell them, okay, it has been helping you, you're making some sense, go and visit your doctor. So in Ayurveda there are no separate diets for separate diseases, unless and until you're under following a particular healer.
Yeah.
So one thing will cure everything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is required is that if the damage is too much, you require intervention of herbs. If the damage is sustainable, you can just support your system with the diet, and it doesn't matter what kind of medications you are. You could be on allopathic medications, herbal medications, or this. The goal is to be medicine free and make food and lifestyle your medicine and health.
Yeah.
And that is what the goal has to be, Ayurveda's goal. So therefore we say in Ayurveda, ahar, vihar, and aushadhi. Ahar means diet, vihar means lifestyle, and aushadhi means medication. So health is preserved in a status quo by proper diet, proper lifestyle, and if required, medications. It is not all three, it is either of the three, but ahar and vihar are the prime.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense, and hopefully you have gained something from this conversation about a lifestyle that can help um, build your immunity or cultivate your immunity over the long term. So we'll continue this conversation, and in the next video we will talk a little bit about the long-term impact of this pandemic on us, our health and the way we live, and the way we will conduct business over who knows how long. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me in our show, Dr. Kavita. Thank you.